Hey YouTube, it's ShryphonX here. Today we're going to be talking about Jujutsu Kaisen Modulo Chapter 7. Like and subscribe for more content. The most shocking cameo in Jujutsu Kaisen Modulo. Jujutsu Kaisen Modulo Chapter 7. Did Mahito just confirm that Maru is Sukuna's reincarnation? Will Mahito reincarnate in time for the Simurian invasion and have a true final battle against Old Man Yuji? In the previous Jujutsu Kaisen Modulo chapter, Maru awakens his full power to fight against the old curse user, who recalls how he was hunted down by Yuji Itadori. Jujutsu Kaisen Modulo Chapter 7 is titled, Those Marked by Theft. This chapter has 20 pages, including the color page. The color page features Yuka, with cross at the back. The caption reads, "The one who endured theft, and the one who had her heart swallowed by the vortex of hatred have their eyes on the future to come." Editor's note: the fierce battle with the curse user has Maru lose control, and now Cross makes an appearance. The chapter begins with Usami finally showing up, proving the situation is more difficult than the usual mission. Unlike the Cursed Womb mission in the original story, at least someone intervened before the situation escalated. Usami tells the curse user Masayoshi not to move, but the old man thinks Usami is just a regular team. Usami repeats his command, and, to Masayoshi's surprise, Usami's left hand, which he covers his mouth with, has the serpent eye and fang curse seal of the Inumaki clan's curse speech technique, leading to the curse user being unable to move. This is an interesting application of the technique, because most users, or at least Hoj, are unable to speak normal words, or else unwittingly create effects or suffer backlash. By placing the seal on the hand, it means there is control over when the technique can be used. This could also mean that Usami is not a blood relative of the Inumaki clan, but married into it, although there's also a chance that the technique could be inherited this way, and not just the mouth. Maybe mouth markings are for those in the main family, while the branch family has them on the hand to ensure controlled activation. Usami then punches and kicks the enemy, knocking him out. Usami leaves the defeated curse user to Mino. Meanwhile, Cross wakes Tsurugi up and, grabbing the unconscious young man, asks him what it means to be friends. Cross is angered by Maru's influence and tells Tsurugi that he knows the Earth's history. After World War II, the Japanese people were able to enjoy the peace given by the great powers. Therefore, it offended Cross that such privileged people were meant to understand his kind. Cross is upset with the way humans are privileged because of the post-war peace. Everything humans need to live is given to them since they are born. He seems to be talking about the real history of Japan, almost as if it was his own. Then again, as we have seen throughout the series, Cross could also represent online activism, taking on the anger of the oppressed, yet speaking for them callously without deepening himself in context. Given this reading, we see why Cross would want a war to happen, to remove a hypocritical race that he deems an existential threat, but this comes with a tone of superiority. As we see later, Cross needed to examine more of human history from the testimony of humans rather than his preconceived biases. However, Cross mentions something interesting: the treatment of Simurian refugees. Right now, they are not allowed to enter due to the potential of this spiraling into an invasion. The mere fact the Simurians are still on their ships and unable to settle on Earth makes Cross upset, as if there is an inherent assumption that the humans look down on the Simurian refugees as dirty, weak, and dangerous. A rhetoric that sounds all too familiar for the entire world. In the United States, especially, refugees and even its own citizens are constantly scrutinized in a regime of total paranoia disguised or intended as democracy. In Japan, with the first female prime minister being an ultra-conservative and the growing movement of far-right, anti-immigration sentiments, the presence of the aliens triggers such discourse, even as fans disapprove of Cross hater energy. As this happens, Cross comes across Usami. Cross asks Usami if he can take Maru to be treated to the mothership. However, knowing what showing Maru in his wounded state could do, Usami protests by asking if Maru's condition may not necessitate Simurian-specific treatment. Usami wonders if Cross is suspicious that the humans will want to get information about Simurian biology. However, in the end, Maru does get taken, and Cross then takes Maru's eye patch and once again disguises himself as his brother, like he did at the end of Chapter 2. Deterrence. Mahito is back. We then see what appears to be Mahito remarking that, "What's all this? I thought you were him," as if referring to either Maru or Tsurugi. Now, this is extremely telling. At the end of Jujutsu Kaisen, in Chapter 271, from now on, we see Mahito in the passageway in the circulation of souls, wailing and gnashing his teeth. If we go biblical here, as he watches Sukuna take a different path with a younger Euron, while Mahito himself is left alone in the darkness. This feels like a confirmation that Maru may or may not be the reincarnation of Sukuna. At first glance, it looks like an outright denial that Maru is Sukuna's reincarnation. But perhaps he could be looking at other things here, which we will discuss later. What if Sukuna's reincarnation is not Maru but Cross? Think about it. Sukuna completely understands Yuji's sentimentality and Kashimo's longing for love, as well as Gojo's attempts to form a connection with the strongest in history, but he not only sees no need for love, but cannot connect it with himself. But in the final chapter, we realize that Sukuna always hated his cursed circumstances of being hated and feared due to his appearance and power, so he always lived by that cursed nature. Maru is quite friendly and seeks peace, while Cross is surprised by Tsurugi's declaration of wanting to be friends with Maru. Cross is more opposed to coexistence, but part of him seems to be moved by Tsurugi's sentiments, especially since Tsurugi and Cross are similar in their apprehension towards the other race. Another possibility is that Mahito was just slipping into other people's souls, considering Mahito's idol transfiguration allows him to manipulate the shape of any soul he might be. Soul-searching. Perhaps he was looking for Sukuna's reincarnation and was only present to be in Tsurugi's soul to check, but confirmed that Tsurugi was not the one. Alternatively, he could also be looking for Yuji Itadori, the one he hated. The link between curses and dreams is something Kinjaku brought up in Chapter 160. So a realm between curses and dreams like the soul circulation realm would allow Mahito, and only Mahito with his idol transfiguration, to peruse through any human's dreams, including an unconscious Tsurugi. By saying this, it is likely that Mahito has yet to find what he is looking for, which is very likely Sukuna's reincarnation, and this means that he has not checked out either Maru or Cross. But what could have been the trigger for Mahito's search anyway? Was it Tsurugi's words of coexistence or the hatred between humans and Simurians, as expressed by Cross and subconsciously by both the unconscious Maru and Tsurugi? Mahito was born from the hatred of humans towards each other, so perhaps the war between the two similar races will result in Mahito's reincarnation. Will he be looking to possess someone, and Tsurugi was not considered because of his low cursed energy? Jujutsu Kaisen and Christianity. Tsurugi wakes up, finds Maru next to him, and wonders how Yuka is doing, but Maru says she is doing fine and mentions that Cross has arrived. Tsurugi asks Maru if Cross is constantly pissed off, which brings out an annoyed expression out of the fake Maru, who says that it is not at all true. Tsurugi apologizes to the Simurian when he brought up invasions and calling him a freeloader on Earth, saying that he does not know his circumstances, but he now understands. Yuka arrives and praises Maru, with Tsurugi remarking that he is strong enough to be a grade 1 sorcerer. Tsurugi seems well enough to move that he tells Yuka and Maru that they should go. Cross looks confused, but Tsurugi reminds Maru that this was his idea in the first place. The trio, including Mino, all head for the fair, where they rode merry-go-round and roller coaster. While Yuka was having the time of her life, Cross and Tsurugi did not. As Maru gets some popcorn, a little boy is about to lose her pumpkin-shaped balloon, but Cross grabs the string and gives the balloon to the child. Except the kid looks for his mother. This makes the three look stone-faced, with Tsurugi and Mino running off to find the child's mother. Yuka tries to comfort the boy by saying that his mommy will come back if he waits like a good little boy. He cries, showing Yuka is not that good with kids. Maru harshly tells the boy to stop crying since he has not lost his family anyway, but now the child is crying even harder. To stop the crying, Maru decides to do a backflip, which impresses a gathering crowd. Yuka, the competitive little brat that she is, does the same, which annoys Cross. It is so refreshing to see that the lead girl is not some love interest, but is even more competitive than everyone in the series. Eventually, the mother arrives to pick up her child, which leads to the boy giving the Halloween balloon to Cross, who wonders what Halloween is. And here we have the very first instance of a manga or comic explaining the full origins of Halloween. Yuka explains that it was a Christian holiday, not a fun or secular one like what most movies show or how Japan itself treats the holiday. She goes straight for where the Japanese directly got it from, the celebration of All Hallows Eve, where the name is from. However, she also brings up that it used to be a holiday from a different religion, but she is not sure. Let's clarify the actual history. Halloween has always been a Christian holiday originally called All Hallows Eve, as in the day before All Saints' Day, saint being hallow or holy people. However, the current version of the holiday, in its secular form with costumes and spooks, is inspired by Samhain, a traditional Gaelic pagan festival celebrated every November 1st for communing with the dead and beginning at least in the early 16th century. Part of the holiday involved wearing costumes to represent the spirits. Anyway, Cross asks if Christianity is the religion all humans follow, but Yuka clarifies that this is the religion of only 30% of the planet. Yuka also clarifies that the Japanese do not really bother with religion, even if some follow Buddhism, Confucianism, and Shintoism, and believes that Japan adapted any holiday that would boost the economy. Cross wonders if Yuka does not believe in any particular god, with her response resembling agnosticism or the belief that the existence of God is unknown to them. Who knows? At least I don't. But also speaking for the general populace's agnosticism. Cross confirms that the Simurians have a god. Let us hope Gij Akitami does bring up this god in the future. Yuka brings up a rare topic, the Fumi images. Yuka reveals that Christianity was banned centuries ago by the Japanese shogunate, and the authorities used the Fumi images of Jesus Christ, the God of Christianity, to root out any believers. It would make any suspected believers step on the images, and if they refused, they were confirmed to be believers and be executed. Yuka believes that even if she did believe in God, she would just step on the image in order to survive, since she can just atone for her sin later. This is also in reference to the sacrament of confession, where sinners confess their sins to the priest to be forgiven. Confession of mortal sins, including sacrilege, such as stepping on any image of Jesus or his mortal mother, the Virgin Mary, and the saints, is a requirement for any Catholic to receive communion so that they can maintain the state of grace in receiving the believed body of Christ in the bread. Yuka would know about confession, but every religion has rituals of penance. Her approach to penance is also revealing of the modern state of religion, as people think they can be casual about committing sins to receive future penance, thus weakening their sincerity. While Yuka respects other cultures and beliefs, she finds it hard to understand why anyone would risk their lives for Cross, then asks if it was not a picture, but a living being, would Yuka step on it? This is such a core question to that belief, especially in relation to Christianity. While images are not sacred in themselves, the reason people do not desecrate such objects is because they are treated as representing a real, living being, the real living God, and to do so is to be cruel and unloving towards the God who created and loved them first. This also ties to the Christian belief of the real presence in the Eucharist or the bread and wine consecrated in the Holy Mass. Any representation of a god or religious icon in general is a precious part of the community, and to trample on it would be to hurt the soul of the believer and their community. Yuka has brain cancer. Cross makes Yuka understand how shallow her and Tsurugi's views of coexistence are because they come from a place of privilege, and that humans are the ones with the power to enforce that coexistence to their favor. Cross sees humans as unknowingly trampling on the lives of the Simurian refugees by depriving them of access to the planet. Cross condemns humans for doing nothing to stop the oppression, even holding them responsible for stealing from the Simurians. While Cross believes that those who have experienced theft have no right to steal, he also believes that it is expected to happen, so the humans should be prepared for when the times comes that the Simurians retaliate. Yuka hears this as a declaration of war, but somehow still has not pieced together that she is not talking to Maru, but his belligerent brother, Cross. She decides to show Maru a second opinion. She goes to a doctor to get a scan of her brain. We also have a date, October 2nd, 2086. At first one may think this is to show the part of the brain that creates jujitsu. As it turns out, Yuka has brain cancer and that she has only 6 months to live, yet she treats it like a joke, likely her way to cope with the feeling of mortality. Cross asks why she took him with her, to which she says that while she hates being alone, she hates being pitted even more. Given the relationship the siblings have, it is likely that Tsurugi does not know about this. And yes, we have confirmation that one of the protagonists of this series will die, and it is the girl character of all things. By this point, Yuka knows she is talking to Cross, without her revealing that she knew. This is subtle writing and avoids drama, since both characters have gradually understood the situation. Cross says that no matter what Yuka says or has gone through, even if she has only a short time to live, he will not change his mind. That is because Yuka has already resigned to her fate, that the things she did in life, from her favorite food and hobbies to her experiences, will feel stale in the end. Cross thinks that as Yuka sinks into despair, she will ask herself if she was cursed by fate and sink into a vortex of hatred over her own fate. Yuka wonders if Cross is talking about himself here. Cross responds by saying that Yuka's future has been stolen, and Yuka asks if Cross would simply steal tenfold. Cross condemns Yuka for comparing her circumstances, a fleeting life due to cancer, to his own, while his people suffered as a result of man-made calamity, not sickness or an accident. Cross thinks Yuka is trying to make him sympathize with humans using her cancer, but Yuka says she never once had that in mind, and that Cross could change things with time. Yuka thinks it is totally fine to maintain that anger towards injustice, and asks what exactly happened to the Simurians. We ourselves are wondering what really happened, since the first chapter seems to suggest they have just arrived, but that they are refugees. Were humans responsible, or were they ravaged by another race? Cross says that words are cheap and refuses to be swayed by someone who did not experience the things he has. However, in his mind, Cross knows he is wrong and that Yuka has been through a lot herself. Yet Cross believes that coexistence will only amount to not displeasing the Earthlings, and refuses a similar position as the Japanese in World War II, a future decided by others with power, so Cross will take his own future to steal. Sounds like an Eren Yeager line. Yuka then asks how long will Cross have to steal, since hating and stealing is easy, but that is precisely why the wheels keep turning, reverting to their original position. This ties back to the title of the series, Modulo, a math term for reaching the same remainder despite using two different calculations. Maintaining the vortex of hate and helplessness results in the cycle returning to the original position of the clock, back to square one, where humans and aliens hate each other. There is nothing wrong with being angry especially at injustice, but to only stay there, ranting and wailing without actively reaching out to the community of oppressed and helping improve their lives, even just fighting for fighting's sake, will only further the helpless you and other victims feel. So perhaps the solution is to break the wheel itself. Sounds like a Daenerys Targaryen line. This really channels a lot of Gij Akutami's writing from chapter 265, That Day, which was arguably the best chapter of the whole series. This chapter is actually very similar in concept, leading the villain to encounter humanity to reach an understanding. The chapter both end with a resolution, Yuji offering mercy, but Sukuna responding with his desire to kill everyone in Yuji's life to make it meaningless, while Yuka offers cooperation to end the cycle. The chapter ends with Yuka offering for the two of them to break the wheel of destiny together. Standing on some stone steps, with a modern bridge behind them, is such poignant symbolism. The modern, enforced peace between Simurians and humans, a bridge made by humans, is behind and opposed to an older bridge of stone steps, whether man-made or natural, where people make the effort to leap to the next step forward. The real bridge of peace was the one Yuka and Cross stood on, not the product of empty modernity. Also, is this a shipping moment for the two, instead of with her first alien friend, Muru? But more importantly, is this the setup for the war between the two races, or will this be the bridge of understanding, with Yuka and Tsurugi joining hands to bring Cross to understanding humans, while the sorcerer siblings learn to understand the Simurian plight? Editor's note: the bridge between the Simurians and the Earthlings. Author's comment: expression. I wondered what kind of expression I should draw, thinking I might find the answer as I went along, but I couldn't solve it in the end, and just finished drawing as is. Thank you for watching this video. Please like and subscribe for more content. ShryphonX out.